Hi, and welcome to On the Shelves at ACPL. It is March, and this weekend actually, is when we change to daylight savings time, so we're losing an hour. I thought an appropriate topic for this week's episode would be time travel. So we're going to look at some books that I have enjoyed or that I found in the library that I think I might enjoy about time travel. And this is not just, our time travel books are not just science fiction. I think a lot of times we think about it and we imagine that they only fall into that genre. But you'll see in looking at these books that there is a wide variety of books that involve time travel. So let's get started. My first choice is The River of No Return by B. Ridgway. Nick is a lord. He is fighting in the Napoleonic Wars and he dies. Sees someone coming, gonna kill him. And when he wakes up, he realizes he is in a hospital, but not a hospital like he would recognize. There's someone sitting beside his bed, and that person says, "Hi, welcome to the 21st century." He is, of course, shocked by all of this. The person explains that they are part of something called the Guild. And the Guild travels the rivers of time and tells him that you really can only travel forward, not backward, which is not exactly the truth, but he starts off believing that that is the case. But he really wants to go back, and he keeps studying this because he wants to go back and be with his love, Julia, in the 1800s. Meanwhile, Julia is finding out that her family is also involved in time manipulation. Her grandfather has always been able to manipulate time and has given her some information about this, but not nearly enough, and then he is dying. So, and her cousin is getting ready to pull up in the front of the house to take it over, because if you don't know, that was the way things worked in the 1800s and in many cultures, that the estate, the money, was entailed. It could only go to a male heir. If you didn't have a son or a grandson, it would go to a cousin, someone who was a distant relative, and that is what is going to happen. So Julia finds out that she also can manipulate time, stop time, and is exploring that when she finds out that Nick is also able to travel through time, and he comes back to try to save her. And they get involved in this conflict between the Guild and a group called the Offren, and who were both trying to manipulate time, who are traveling. And the story is really a great one. It is something that you will enjoy reading. It has romance. It has a little bit of historical fiction, but also a little of that science fiction, because you are, in fact, traveling through time. So I really recommend this one. I really enjoyed reading it. My next choice is The Jane Austen Project by Kathleen A. Flynn. Two people are part of a physics group that is exploring time travel. They figure it out. The people who are leading this super secret project, one of them is a huge Jane Austen fan and wants to send people back to the time of Jane Austen to recover some of her letters between her and her sister Cassandra and learn more about Jane Austen, as well as recover one of her lost manuscripts. So these two people are well trained, they have the clothing, they have the money, and they are dropped in a field in Jane Austen's time and must find a way to work themselves into the Austen's orbit to get to know her brothers, to get to know her sisters and to maybe help her and change history. So this is, if you are a Jane Austen fan, you're going to love this book. It is really fun to read. But even if you are not a Jane Austen fan, you will really enjoy reading about some of the issues that might come up if you're traveling to the past and interacting with a famous author and possibly changing lives, or even a normal person and changing lives. What effects might this have on you? Can you, in good conscience, make these changes? It's an interesting question. My next choice is Hazards of Time Travel by Joyce Carol Oates. A young lady is testing the boundaries of her world, of her life in the future. She is punished by her dystopian society and sent back in time to 1959, a place called Wainscotia, Wisconsin. It is supposed to be a rehabilitation for her. She is supposed to learn to live within the boundaries that modern society has set. And so she is sent as a punishment and to rehabilitate her to Wainscotia. But she meets other people, and one of them strikes her as possibly another exile like her. So she pursues him. She is not supposed to fall in love. She is not supposed to procreate. She is not supposed to, I am assuming, affect life back in this, this community as a time traveler. But that is really not what's going to happen. So if you are a Joyce Carol Oates fan, you know what a wonderful writer she is. If not, she writes beautifully. Her stories are always very interesting and really challenge you to think about our world and some of the things that that we deal with as a society. This one certainly is talking about, I guess, the hazards of time travel, but more about the hazards of censorship and control of other people. My next choice is The Little Shop of Found Things. It is by Paula Brackston. This is the first of the series. There are 3 right now, and a 4th one, I believe, is coming out later this year. In this story, we have Xanthi. She has moved with her mother to a quaint little town in England, and is opened up a secondhand antique shop. She and her mother are hoping to make a go of this. Xanthi has left a relationship with an ex-husband who's not great, and her mother is suffering from some physical ailments and uses crutches fairly frequently. Xanthi is an interesting character. When she picks up certain items, they speak to her, they sing to her. So she picks up a lace collar and feels the feelings that the person who wore this 100 years ago, 125 years ago, 150 years ago, she feels their feelings. She may know a little bit of their story. And so she uses this when she's getting things to sell in her shop. But then she gets this one item that really is singing to her. She's moved into this house. There is a shed back in the back of their property, and she goes into that shed with this item and is suddenly transported back to the time when this item was first used. So she travels in time using this object. And she finds out ultimately that she is part of a group called the Spinners. And they are time travelers who go back to make a difference in history. They go back and make subtle changes to bring about better outcomes. So if you are interested in historical fiction, these are really great choices. You learn a lot about each book. You go back to a different time period and you learn a lot about people who lived during that time, the clothing, their customs, the things they ate and drank. They're fascinating books for those of us who enjoy history. And they're a lot of fun to read as well with the time travel. And my last choice is The Shining Girls by Lauren Beukes. This book, I have not read it, but it sounds like it would be fascinating because I also love mysteries and thrillers. This book, there is a man called Harper who is a serial killer. He stumbles upon a house in Depression-era Chicago that has doors that open to different time periods. He goes to these time periods, he meets young girls, he gives them something, and then he comes back later and kills them. They shine, was the way he puts it, hence the title, The Shining Girls. And this goes on until one of them lives and starts investigating what's going on. And I guess ultimately figures out that he is traveling through time, which, if you're going to commit a murder, this is the perfect way to do it. You kill someone, you go back to this house, you disappear into another time, and you're not even there when they're investigating that murder. So this has got to be a really, really interesting book. I am planning on putting it on my list of books to read this spring. So those are my choices of time travel books. I certainly found many, many more. If you are interested in putting any of these on hold, you can go to our catalog at alamance.libraries.org, or you can call any of our branches and we'll be happy to put them on hold for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you survive the time change this weekend, or have survived the time change if you watch this after this weekend. And we'll see you next time on the shelves.